The evening air was crisp as I stepped into our favorite restaurant, the familiar aroma of Italian cuisine wafting towards me, a comforting reminder of the many dinners Elise and I had shared here. It was our place, a sanctuary from the world's chaos, where we dreamed about the future and laughed over past follies. Tonight, however, the restaurant felt different, as if it were privy to secrets I was yet to uncover. I checked my watch, noting I was a few minutes early. Elise had texted me earlier, her message a mix of apology and frustration over unexpected work delays. Asterisk finishing up some spreadsheets. I'll hurry. Love you, asterisk, her message read. I smiled, typing a quick reply to let her know I was already at the restaurant and looking forward to seeing her. Settling into our usual booth, I ordered a glass of red wine. The rich, earthy flavor a temporary distraction from the unease that had started to gnaw at me. Elise and I had been navigating through rough waters lately, our conversations more about schedules than the deep, meaningful exchanges we used to have. Tonight, I hoped, would be a step back towards each other. As I scanned the menu, a laugh caught my attention. A sound so familiar, yet unexpectedly out of place. Turning, I saw him, Michael Turner, Elise's boss, with a woman I'd presumed to be his wife. The recognition was mutual, and within moments, they were approaching my table. "James, fancy seeing you here," Michael greeted, his voice carrying the same authoritative tone I'd heard at the few company events I'd attended. "Michael, Rachel," I replied, standing to shake his hand and nodding towards his wife. "I didn't expect to see you here." Rachel, a petite woman with sharp features, offered a polite smile. "We didn't mean to intrude. We can find another spot," she said, her eyes darting towards the empty seat across from me. No, please join me. Elise will be joining shortly. She's just tied up with work," I explained, gesturing for them to sit. The words felt heavy, laden with a meaning I couldn't quite grasp. As we settled into an uneasy conversation about the weather and the latest news, the weight of Elise's absence grew heavier. Michael's casual mention of the office and the workload seemed pointed, a niggling doubt beginning to form in the back of my mind. Then, as if on cue, Elise arrived. The moment she saw Michael and Rachel, her steps faltered, her smile strained. "Michael, Rachel, what a surprise," she said, her voice tinged with a nervous energy I hadn't noticed before. "Elise, we were just discussing your dedication to those spreadsheets," Michael said, his tone light, but his eyes sharp. Elise's laugh was too loud, too forced. "Yes, well, they won't finish themselves," she replied, taking her seat beside me. Her hand found mine under the table, a gesture of reassurance, or perhaps one of desperation. The dinner that was meant to be a simple evening out was turning into a stage for a play I hadn't auditioned for. The actors all too familiar yet playing parts I couldn't comprehend. As the conversation flowed around me, a sense of foreboding settled in, the pieces of a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to complete beginning to fall into place. As the initial shock of Michael and Rachel's presence began to wear off, I tried to steer the conversation towards safer waters, hoping to dispel the tension that seemed to have enveloped our table. Michael, however, seemed intent on keeping the dialogue within the orbit of work. His questions to Elise pointed and laced with an undercurrent of something I couldn't quite place. "So, Elise, how's the Henderson project going? Last I checked, you were leading the redesign," Michael asked, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that seemed out of place for casual dinner conversation. Elise shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her smile faltering as she replied, "It's going well, thanks. We're on track for the next client presentation. Alex has been a great help." The mention of Alex Reed, Elise's colleague, seemed to pique Michael's interest further. "Ah, Alex. He's quite the talent, isn't he? I've noticed you two have been working closely together." I could feel Elise's grip on my hand tighten under the table, her discomfort palpable. "Yes, he's very talented," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Rachel, who had been quietly observing the exchange, chimed in, her tone light, but probing. "It must be challenging, balancing such a demanding project with your personal life. How do you manage? Elise glanced at me, a fleeting look of panic crossing her features before she composed herself. Well, it's not easy, but James has been incredibly supportive. Haven't you, love? I nodded, squeezing her hand in reassurance, though her words felt like a script she hadn't quite memorized. Of course, we're a team, I said, trying to inject confidence into my voice. The conversation drifted to other topics, but the undercurrents of tension remained, an unspoken question hanging in the air. Michael and Rachel's unexpected company had turned our dinner into an interrogation of sorts, each question a veiled accusation, each answer a desperate defense. As the evening wore on, the weight of the unsaid grew heavier, a sense of foreboding settling over me. Elise's occasional attempts to change the subject were met with polite nods before the conversation inevitably circled back to her work, to Alex, to the delicate balance she was struggling to maintain. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Michael and Rachel's presence than mere coincidence. The pointed questions, the probing looks, the way Elise seemed to shrink under their gaze, all of it pointed to a hidden agenda, a piece of the puzzle I was missing. As dessert was served, a tense silence fell over our table, the sweetness of the tiramisu a stark contrast to the bitterness that had taken root in my heart. The evening had started as an attempt to reconnect with Elise, to find our way back to each other. Instead, I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about my wife about us. And as we made our way through the final course, the polite facade began to crack, revealing the fault lines that had been forming beneath the surface. The unexpected company had brought with it an unexpected revelation, one that threatened to unravel the very fabric of our marriage. The evening had taken a turn towards the surreal, each passing moment stretching out like a scene from a play, where I was both audience and actor, unsure of my lines. The arrival of Elise, far from being the relief I had anticipated, only served to heighten the tension that now seemed to suffocate the very air around us. Her entrance was marked by a hurried apology, her eyes scanning the table, taking in the sight of Michael and Rachel, before settling on me with a mixture of relief and something else. Fear, perhaps, or guilt. I'm so sorry I'm late. The traffic was a nightmare, and then I couldn't find my phone, Elise began, her voice a rapid-fire mix of excuses that seemed rehearsed. I hope I haven't kept everyone waiting too long. Michael waved away her apology with a practiced smile, his eyes never leaving hers. Not at all, Elise. We were just enjoying some wine and catching up. Please sit. As Elise took her seat beside me, I felt her hand seek mine beneath the table, a silent plea for support. I clasped it, trying to convey reassurance, but the questions swirling in my mind made it difficult to focus. Rachel, ever the gracious hostess despite being a guest herself, smiled at Elise. We were just discussing how challenging it must be to balance such a demanding job with personal life. You must be quite the superwoman. Elise laughed, a sound that was too high, too strained. I wouldn't say that. I just do what I can, and having a supportive partner makes all the difference, she said, squeezing my hand. I nodded, trying to smile, but the gesture felt hollow. Elise is amazing at what she does. I'm just here to do whatever I can to help. The conversation meandered, a superficial dance around topics of work, the weather, and the latest news. Yet, the undercurrent of something unspoken continued to pulse beneath the surface, an electric charge that threatened to ignite at the slightest provocation. It was Michael who broke the uneasy peace, his voice casual, but his words loaded with an invisible weight. So, Elise, I heard you and Alex have been putting in some late nights on the Henderson project. It's great to see such dedication. Elise stiffened beside me, her grip on my hand tightening to the point of pain. Yes, well, it's a big project. Lots of moving parts. Alex has been a great help. There was a beat of silence, a moment where the facade seemed to crack, revealing the raw tension beneath. It's important to have people you can rely on, Michael continued, his gaze locked on Elise, especially in high-stress situations. The words hung in the air, a veiled accusation that made my stomach churn. I wanted to defend Elise, to shut down Michael's insinuations, But the seeds of doubt had been planted, watered by the awkward exchanges and Elise's palpable discomfort. As the evening drew to a close, the polite goodbyes did nothing to dispel the cloud of suspicion that now hung over us. Elise and I left the restaurant in a silence that was heavy with things unsaid, the questions I needed to ask burning on the tip of my tongue. But it was the look in Elise's eyes as we walked to the car, a mix of fear, guilt, and desperation, that told me more than words ever could. Something had shifted between us, a chasm opened by the unexpected company and the revelations it had brought. And as we drove home, the comfortable silence that had once been a hallmark of our relationship was now a battlefield, each of us lost in our thoughts, wondering how we had come to this point and where we would go from here. The drive home was a study in silence, a tangible void that seemed to thicken with every mile that passed beneath the tires of our car. Elise's earlier vibrancy had dimmed to a mere shadow, her gaze fixed on the passing streetlights, her thoughts seemingly miles away from the confined space we shared. The questions that had been simmering within me since dinner now bubbled to the surface, demanding to be voiced, yet fear of their answers held my tongue. Upon arriving home, the facade of normalcy we both clung to shattered the moment the front door closed behind us. The air was charged, a prelude to a storm long in the making. "Elise, we need to talk," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. The words hung between us, an invitation and a warning. She nodded, a resigned acceptance in her movements as she took a seat on the couch, patting the space beside her. I joined her, the proximity a stark contrast to the emotional distance that had grown. "James, She started, but her voice cracked, betraying the turmoil beneath her composed exterior. "Elise, what's going on?" "Tonight, with Michael and Rachel." It felt like an interrogation, not a dinner. "And the way you reacted to Michael's questions about Alex," I pressed, the need for clarity outweighing the fear of what that clarity might reveal. She took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice was a whisper, a fragile thread in the silence of our living room. "James, I've made a terrible mistake. It's not what you think, but it's bad. With Alex, there was a moment of weakness. Nothing happened, but it could have. And I've been so scared to tell you." The confession hit me like a physical blow, a mix of relief and betrayal warring within me. Relief that it hadn't gone further, betrayal that it had happened at all. "Why, Elise? Why him? Why now?" The questions poured out, each one a testament to the trust I thought we had. It wasn't about him. It was about me. I've been feeling lost, disconnected from you, from us. And Alex. He was there. He listened. "It was a mistake, James. One I regret more than you can know," she explained, tears streaming down her face, each one a punctuation to her admission. The space between us felt insurmountable, a chasm widened by secrets and regrets. Yet, as I looked at her, at the woman I had vowed to share my life with, I realized the depth of my own failings. "Elise, I've been distant, caught up in my own stresses, my own world. I pushed you away when I should have been pulling you closer. That's on me. But we have to fix this together. Can we do that? Can we try?" I asked, the weight of the moment pressing down on us. She reached for my hand, her touch a balm to the raw edges of my heart. "I want to, more than anything. I love you, James. I'm so sorry. Can you forgive me?" Forgiveness felt like a distant shore, but as I looked into her eyes, I saw the remorse, the love that still lingered there. "I don't know, Elise, but I'm willing to try. We're going to have to rebuild from the ground up. And it starts with honesty, with us, no more secrets." A nod, a mutual understanding passed between us, the first step on a long road to recovery. The revelation had laid bare the fractures in our relationship, but it had also opened the door to healing, to rebuilding what had been lost. As we sat together in the silence of our living room, the challenges ahead loomed large. Yet, in that moment, there was also hope, a belief that through honesty, through confronting our failings, we could find our way back to each other. The morning after our revelation was a fragile thing, sunlight filtering through the curtains casting shadows that seemed to mirror the uncertainty that had taken root between us. Elise and I moved around each other with a newfound caution, the air thick with unspoken words and the weight of our confession. It was over breakfast, a meal that had once been a time for shared plans and laughter, that the silence finally broke. "James, I think we need to talk about what happens next," Elise said, her voice steady, but her hands betraying her nerves as they fiddled with the edge of her napkin. I looked up from my untouched coffee, the knot in my stomach tightening. "Yes, we do. Last night was a lot to take in. But I meant what I said. I'm willing to try to work through this together." She offered a small, tentative smile, the first genuine one I'd seen since the night before. "Thank you. That means more to me than you know. I've been thinking, and maybe we should consider seeing someone, a professional who can help us navigate this." The suggestion hung in the air, a lifeline in the tumultuous sea we found ourselves. "Therapy," I said, the word feeling foreign yet necessary. "I think that's a good idea. We've both made mistakes, and if we're going to move past this, we need all the help we can get." Elise reached across the table, her hand seeking mine, a gesture of unity in the face of our struggles. "I also think we need to be honest, completely honest. Starting with Alex. I want to tell you everything, leave no more room for secrets or doubts." And so she did. Elise recounted the moments leading up to the almost infidelity, her feelings of loneliness, her fears that she'd have become invisible within our marriage, and how Alex, ever present and willing to listen, had become a confidant in ways I had not. It was a confession that cut deep, not because of the betrayal, but because of the realization of how far apart we had drifted. "James, can you tell me, honestly, how you're feeling right now?" Elise asked after her confession, her eyes searching mine for any sign of the hurt I undoubtedly felt. Hearing the raw truth from Elise, the depth of her loneliness, was a revelation in itself. Hurt, yes, but more than that, I'm angry at myself. I've been so wrapped up in my own world that I didn't see how much you were hurting. For that, I'm sorry. And scared of losing you, of not being able to fix this." Elise squeezed my hand, her own fear mirrored in her eyes. "I'm scared too. But I believe in us, James. I believe we can get through this, as long as we're both willing to fight for it." The conversation marked a turning point for us, the beginning of a long and undoubtedly difficult journey toward healing. It was a confrontation of our deepest fears and insecurities, but it was also a confession of our unwavering hope for the future. In the days that followed, we took the first tentative steps toward reconciliation. We found a therapist specializing in couples counseling, and though the sessions were often emotionally exhausting, they provided a framework for understanding and forgiveness. The path was not an easy one, fraught with moments of doubt and pain, but also filled with small victories and renewed connections. Through it all, the promise we made to each other that morning, to face the challenges together, remained our guiding light. Confrontation and confession had laid bare the wounds we had inflicted upon each other, but they also offered the chance for healing. In facing our darkest moments, we found a resilience within ourselves and our relationship that we had not known existed. And with each step forward, we began to rebuild, not just our marriage, but the foundation of trust and love upon which it had first been built. The days following our commitment to reconciliation were a testament to the complexity of mending a fractured relationship. Each step forward seemed to be met with a reminder of the distance still between us, a dance of progress and setback that tested our resolve. One evening, as we sat in the living room attempting to navigate the awkwardness of our new reality, the phone rang, slicing through the silence like a verdict. Elise glanced at the caller ID and then at me, a silent storm brewing in her eyes. It was Alex. "I need to take this," she said, her voice a mix of resignation and defiance. I nodded, the tightness in my chest a tangible reminder of the trust we were still rebuilding. "Okay, I'll be in the kitchen." As I walked away, the muffled tones of their conversation acted as a catalyst for the swirling doubts I had been fighting to keep at bay. Was our attempt at reconciliation just a facade? Were we merely delaying the inevitable? I was staring blankly at the coffee maker when Elise found me, her face an open book of emotions. James, we need to talk about that call. I braced myself, the foundations we were trying to lay suddenly feeling as though they were made of sand. What did you want, Elise? It's over between Alex and me in every possible way. He called to apologize, to try and explain his actions, but I told him there was nothing left to discuss. That my commitment is to you, to us, Elise explained, her eyes searching mine for understanding, for forgiveness. The relief that washed over me was tinged with the residue of insecurity. Elise, it's hard for me, hearing his name, knowing how close I came to losing you to him. I trust you, but it's going to take time for that trust to feel solid again. I know, and I'm so sorry for putting us in this position. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, for as long as it takes, to earn back your trust, she said, her voice steady with determination. The conversation marked a turning point in our journey. It was a realization that the fallout from our actions would continue to challenge us, but it also solidified our commitment to face those challenges together. In the weeks that followed, we worked tirelessly on rebuilding our relationship. We attended therapy sessions, where we learned to communicate more effectively, to express our fears and desires openly. We dedicated time to rediscovering each other, to sharing experiences that reminded us of the love that had brought us together in the first place. But it wasn't just about us. We had to confront the impact our situation had on those around us. Friends who had been caught in the crossfire of our discord needed reassurance that we were on a path to healing. Our families, who had offered support and concern, needed to see that their faith in us wasn't misplaced. One evening, gathered with our closest friends, we addressed the elephant in the room. We know it's been difficult for everyone, seeing us struggle. But we want you to know that we're committed to working through this, to coming out stronger on the other side. I said, Elise's hand in mine, a united front. The support we received was overwhelming, a reminder that the fallout from our actions had touched more than just our lives. But it also served as a testament to the strength of the bonds we had, both with each other and with those we cared about. The fallout from our crisis was a harsh reminder of the fragility of trust and the strength required to rebuild it. It was a journey marked by moments of doubt and pain, but also by moments of profound connection and understanding. Through it all, we learned that love, in its truest form, is not just about the joy of the good times, but also about the resilience to face the bad times together. The weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, the storm that had threatened to drown us receded, leaving its wake a clarity that had been obscured by our tumultuous emotions. It was in this newfound clarity that we found ourselves one evening, sitting on the back porch, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, reflecting on the journey that had brought us to this moment. I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we've been through, Elise began, her voice soft, yet carrying an undercurrent of strength that had been forged in the fires of our trials. I turned to her, the fading light casting her face in a warm glow. Me too. It feels like we've been through a lifetime of emotions in just a few months. Elise nodded, a wistful smile playing on her lips. We have. And it's made me realize just how much I've taken for granted. How much I've taken you for granted. I never want to be in a place where we lose sight of each other again. Her words resonated deep within me, echoing my own reflections. I've been doing some thinking of my own. About how easy it is to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget what really matters. You, us, our family. I've made a decision, Elise. She turned to me, curiosity and a hint of apprehension in her eyes. What kind of decision? I'm going to cut back on my hours at work. It's time I prioritize what's truly important. And I want to start by making sure I'm here. Not just physically, but fully present for you and for our family, I said, the weight of my decision lifting a burden I hadn't fully realized I'd been carrying. Elise's eyes filled with tears, and she reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. James, that means so much to me. I've missed you. Not just the you that comes home after work, but the you that laughs and dreams and loves with all his heart. I pulled her into my arms, the setting sun casting long shadows around us. I've missed us, Elise. But I know we can get back to that place where we're not just surviving, but thriving. Together. As the stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, we sat in silence. A comfortable, companionable silence that spoke volumes of the journey we had undertaken. It was a journey that had tested us in ways we could never have imagined, but it had also taught us the true meaning of love, forgiveness, and resilience. Our reflection on the past and the decisions we made for our future were not just about rectifying mistakes. They were about acknowledging growth, the understanding that love is not a static emotion, but a dynamic force that evolves and strengthens in the face of adversity. The path ahead would not be without its challenges, but we faced it with a renewed sense of purpose and commitment. We had learned that the foundation of our relationship, built on love, trust, and communication, was stronger than any storm we might face. And as we made plans for the future, discussing dreams and aspirations that had once seemed distant, we did so with the knowledge that whatever life threw our way, we would face it together, stronger and more united than ever before. The reflection and decision to put our relationship first, to prioritize our love and our family, was a testament to the journey we had embarked upon. It was a promise, not just to each other, but to ourselves, that we would never lose sight of what truly mattered. And in that promise lay the foundation for a future filled with love, laughter, and the unbreakable bond that we had forged in the fires of adversity.